Welcome to Brake Check. I'm Craig. Behind me on the shores of a Great Lake, I have an enigma. That is the 2021 Mazda CX-30 2.5 Turbo. What do I mean by enigma? Well, first off, the name itself. CX-30? What is that? We have a CX-5, we have a CX-4 in other markets. We have a CX-3, we used to have a CX-3. Why a 30? Mazda itself is such an enigma that Brian and I can't even talk about it without getting into an argument, which is precisely why in this episode we have not spoken about this car with each other once. With that, let's get into it and see if we can figure some of these things out.
Welcome to the interior, another beautiful place to sit. If you've been in any current Mazda, you're going to feel right at home, and that's a good thing. Something Mazda does great is they get the infotainment screen right where it should be, and that's a big deal. Most manufacturers get that wrong. One difference between this car and the Mazda 3, which this interior is basically a carbon copy of, the dash to me feels like it's slightly further away and slightly higher. And what I mean by that is I can put a cup in the cup holder without bashing the AC controls. How does this differ between the Mazda 3 and the CX-5? Well, it's taller than a Mazda 3, so us elder millennials can get in and out without a problem. And it feels like a CX-5 with the roof chopped down, so it's like an SUV coupe. I'm not sure that we needed that, but let's get to dynamics and find out if it's any good. All right, Craig, it's time for dynamics. Excite me with this turbo.
Ready?
Load it.
Here we
Wait
go.
for the squat. Wait for this. There it is.
And
Okay.
Okay.
60. Okay.
Okay, we're not on regular, we're on regular or premium.
I'm on premium.
We're on premium,
because I
so it
put the
makes
right gas in here.
horsepower and torque.
227 on cheap and 250 on premium.
And I think it's like 310 and 320 on the torque.
Exactly. Yep.
Right. So dynamics, we've driven this car. We talked about it. You talked about the interior. I think I talked about it in the intro.
Yeah. It's the third time we've driven this car.
This is the third. Well, yeah, this is the third time we've driven this car. We've driven the CX-9. We've driven the Mazda 3.
Get ready for the hate comments. I can't wait.
We've driven the Mazda 3.
Yeah.
And now we're in the CX-30.
Exactly.
Same power plant, same transmission,
same all-wheel drive,
same architecture.
I'm going to bash out the drivetrain stuff real quick, and then let's move on to you explaining what the heck this car is.
Okay, let's do that.
Dynamics.
Yep.
Here's the biggest difference between the Mazda 3 and the CX-30, because by and large, the body frame and structure is really similar. In fact, this car was born from the Mazda 3 not selling very well.
Right.
Which this will sell better, I guarantee you. At
Right.
least
So
in the US.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because the enigma it is, right?
Right.
You know what it's not an enigma at? An enigma at? Sales.
Yeah, no, it's doing great.
They sold almost as many of these as they did the CX-5.
Which is huge, because the CX-5 is a big success for
Right.
Mazda.
All they've done since they made this car is sold a ton of them.
Exactly. So let me tell you why it's good. I'm comparing this dynamically to the Mazda 3 directly. And the reason why is because it looks the same. Same headlights, same taillights, has cladding on it, and it's on stilts. This, secretly, I didn't realize this at first, is 3 inches shorter in the wheelbase. And because of that, it handles better.
Okay, the turn-in's a little bit better.
Yeah.
I agreed. Although, here's what I noticed when I was driving it. And I'm curious what you think, because I hustled on some back roads.
Yeah.
You still got the same 6-speed complaints we
Slush
have on
box,
all the other ones, which I'm sure Mazda's working on that. But I felt like I was driving on a bubble. I felt like I was on edge more often.
And it was more fun because of that.
And yeah, probably more fun. Actual grip, probably not as good.
No, I agree. Grip levels are probably lower, but I'll be honest, the grip levels in the 3 weren't great, and it felt like a bubble too. The difference is, on a Mazda 3, I expected to be a little more car-like, a little more hot hatchy-esque. I had a crossover expectation with this, and so it drove more like what the Mazda 3 actually drives like, which is pretty good.
And that's where we're going to end up in this car, which is going to be interesting, because we haven't talked about this car on purpose.
On purpose. We have not discussed opinions at all.
But same thing I think we came to in the CX-9 and the 3 and then now this. The reason we joke about them all being the same car is because they all drive exactly the same as well.
Well, and they're all on the same platform as well.
And so that makes a huge expectation difference, right?
Totally.
So a CX-9 3-row SUV, you have one expectation.
I do.
A crossover SUV, you have another expectation.
Yep.
And then a hatch, you have another expectation.
Hot hatch or just regular hatch, I still have another expectation.
And so that's where you had a lot of disappointment because the hatch, you had these wild expectations that it didn't meet.
Well, not wild. I had car expectations that didn't meet because it felt like a crossover. And now, in a crossover, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
And this handles better than a Ford Escape.
Right.
This handles better than a Bronco Sport.
Yeah.
It handles better than a CX-5 just a little bit because it's shorter.
Right.
And the biggest difference dynamically, because I've hustled this a lot too on a back road and found myself smiling a lot.
Okay.
And that's because it turns in well. It has enough suspension to take rough bumps that we have out here.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it will bottom out because it is soft enough.
Yep.
But it's not so soft that it falls on its door handles.
Okay.
So I think it handles and hustles better than you think. Now, the difference that I don't enjoy is that because it's higher, it has more wind to deal with, it struggles in the top end compared to the 3.
Right.
There's just more wind. And the trick to this car, because the turbo is all torque oriented, is force it to shift at 5. Because if you run it out to 6 or 65, that's just headspace to overrun if you need to, but power falls off.
Right.
So I think the 0 to 60 number that the magazines are showing you are when they're popping a shift at 5.
Probably
That's how they're getting it.
Probably right. Yeah, and so dynamics of this car, I think, like we're alluding to, for a crossover, spot on. Hipster score.
Oh man.
3, 2, 1, 5.
Okay, all right. How did you get to 5, Craig?
Basically, here's why I'm at a 5. I don't understand this car.
Middle of the road.
It's an enigma, and so is the Hipster score. It's an enigma because I don't understand what to do with this car and this class and this. It doesn't. I get it. We just explained what it is and why, but I still don't understand it. Why anyone would get it, but people are. So that's why I got it a 5.
Well, here's why I want 6, because 5 is middle of the road because it's nor a Raptor nor a Prius. It's also not offensive to anybody, and it is semi-practical. It gets 1 extra point because millennials love the heck out of this thing, and they're selling all of them. Yeah. So I did my best attempt at understanding it too.
Yeah, and so fair point. It does have, look, you know it's an SUV because it's got an off-road button.
Okay.
So it does have some adventure ability. You could overlandish.
Yeah, you could. Better than the Mazda 3. You've got better ground clearance.
Yeah, so there's that. That's why it's not any less. But
in terms of all-wheel drive, it does crack me up when you launch this thing. It still blows the front tires off. And then it's like it forgets it's all-wheel drive. It's like, oh, wait a minute, send some to the back.
All right, Brian. Who's this car for?
Oh, don't ask me that. I don't know who this car's for.
I thought we were trying to solve the confusion of this thing.
All right, a good job. Look, let me back it up a little to answer this question.
Okay.
The CX-3 was for what I referred to, man, I can't even say this out loud, young college kids, okay? That don't actually need space and they want an SUV, but they still want to park it and mom and dad don't want to spend a lot on it.
Yep.
Well, that college kid has now graduated college, likes their Mazda CX-3, but needs a little more room, but doesn't have kids yet.
Okay.
CX-30.
Okay, all right.
Because if you have a rear-facing kid seat, you're probably not going to use this for that.
Yeah.
The CX-5 has more legroom, the Mazda 3 has more legroom in the second row.
True.
But that's what I think it's for. I think it's for a young person. I don't think you're going to see a lot of elderly in this car.
Yeah. All right, Brian. We only have 5 Mazdas left because we lost the CX-3. We lost the Mazda 6.
Yep.
We got some cool stuff coming, it sounds like.
Yes.
Funded by some of these cars.
Very excited about that.
But so that leaves us, we get the Miata. We're going to throw the Miata out. Okay, because I'm talking about this turbo and this drivetrain.
Okay, okay.
You get the CX-30, CX-5, CX-9, and the Mazda 3. If you have to get the turbo, which one are you getting out of those 4?
Man, I'm torn between this CX-30 and the CX-5. The CX-5 has more headroom, but this drives a little bit better because it's a shorter wheelbase.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think the CX-5 makes better use of, you get a second seat.
Yeah, you get
a second row.
The problem is this drives better because it's shorter wheelbase, but it also has no rear seat legroom. So the CX-5 kind of gives you the blend. I'd probably go CX-5.
Yeah, I would probably lean CX-9, even though you get that third row, which is kind of annoying that you can't use.
Interesting.
I just think this application, it manages my expectations the best.
Okay.
I'm the least annoyed with this turbo and drivetrain in the CX-9.
The CX-9 bothers me because it's a third row that isn't useful as a third row.
I just would never use it.
Yeah, that's fair enough. You do have more cargo capacity, so that's a fair point. Yeah.
Okay, but there's a wild card in that group. If you don't get the turbo, what do you get?
Oh, 3 manual, no question.
Right, that's the only manual left.
That's the only manual left.
Yeah.
And honestly, the manual with the NA inline 4 is pretty good.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's not as fast, but it's more linear. It's actually a fun car on the back road.
Okay, so we solved the Mazda question. Which Mazda to get? Now, which sport activity coupe to get? So you get the BMW X2.
Okay.
You got the Mercedes GLA.
Yeah.
You've got the Lexus UX, and I'm talking about premium sport activity coupes.
Gotcha.
And you've got the CX-30. Which one do you get out of those four?
Probably the GLA.
Probably the GLA. Okay. I think I don't necessarily disagree with that. I think the value one is this one.
I agree. I think the long-term ownership proposition is this one too.
I think if you care about fuel mileage only, it's the UX clearly.
Oh,
It gets almost 40 miles a gallon.
They're all actually really nice premium small cars.
They're neat, interesting cars in a weird, neat new segment.
Yeah. But you know, you said new segment. 20 years back, 10 years back, the Volkswagen Audi group has been known for good premium small cars that you get in the States, which around the world you can get good premium small cars.
Yep.
In the States, usually small car means cheap car.
Right, and people have cheap associated with hatchback.
Exactly, exactly. And that's a persona in the States. They're bringing back the premium small car with these.
That's what these are.
In this segment, which I
they
actually
lift them
like.
and
Right.
Now people like them.
I like that a lot.
Yeah.
I love a premium small thing. And
Yeah.
so I can't hate on this segment that much.
Sure.
Because I've really enjoyed this thing.
That's a good point. Okay, there's two wild cards though.
Okay.
Because in this world, they're not premium, but for $10,000 less, Brian, the Kia Seltos exists,
Yep.
and the Crosstrek exists, and you can get a manual in the Crosstrek.
The manual's really appealing, but it's quite slow. The Seltos is really engaging, and the DSG just sells me on it. I'd go
Yeah.
Seltos for sure. What about you?
I'm not sure where I'd land on those because I'd like Ron Moen gears, but the Seltos is just a value. And
That thing came out of
It's
nowhere.
not as premium, but it does a lot of the things that these cars do.
Yeah.
Just not as nice, not as cushiony.
All right, let's land that plane.
On that, land the plane.
We'll land the plane. Thanks for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this review.
We're learning to land the plane.
No, we're not.
You're
No,
trying to end the show.
It's
By the way, did we ever
rhetorical.
get credits?
We don't have
What are the
credits.
We don't have credits still.
That's it. Thanks for
Why don't we
watching.
have credits?